Hello. It is Hannah here, and Facebook Live is a little different than it used to be, so I'm not even sure if we're streaming or not, which is kind of weird. Are we streaming? I think we're streaming. All right, cool. So I want to talk. I have had some thoughts coming up, and I've noticed a lot of things coming. Well, I've just had a lot of people bring this up recently, and so I thought it would be really helpful to talk about self-responsibility a little bit more, and how it can feel empowering instead of crappy. But first I want to sort of introduce this. You may, if you've been following me, you may know that I talk a lot about how we can't make our partners change. And you have to know I really don't love bearing this news to people, right? At least at first, because most people don't like it, right? We want to be able to control other people. We want to be able to make others change, right? I know I would love that. But I actually love talking about this, that we can't make our partners change, when people get it, when it really clicks, right? When it clicks, then I feel like I just handed the person I'm talking to like the winning ticket to $1 billion lottery. Like, it's so good and so powerful to be able to get this. So yeah, the bad news is we can't control what our partners do. We can't control if they say mean things, or if they do things we don't want them to do. Even though we try to control them, right? And it's truly our human instinct to try to change or control the things outside of us, things that we perceive as being the source of our pain or the problem we're experiencing in our lives. But trying to do that almost always either just fails and just doesn't work, or it backfires. That's even more often what I see, because then it causes us more suffering, like a sense of frustration that we can't change this thing, or exhaustion by continuing to try to change the thing, or anger. Like, for example, if the person that's doing this thing that we don't like is our partner and we're trying to change the way they're doing things, we're going to feel frustrated, angry, helpless, resentful, all of that stuff, right? And that doesn't feel good. So this is why I advocate so deeply taking the counterintuitive route, going to the place where we actually have some power, which is not over our partner, right? The power that we have is actually truly over our internal world, right? And so this counterintuitive route is actually taking responsibility for our experience, right? Or another way that I put that is taking accountability or taking ownership for our experience, or yeah. So, and we might be like taking ownership of the hurt that we feel in our lives, right? So really part of it's looking at where we are contributing to the problem, right? Where we are causing our own pain. And I just want to really clarify this. If you were part of the Stop Taking It So Personally challenge a couple weeks ago, you'll understand this. But the place that we're contributing to our own pain, or causing our own pain, or contributing to the problem, always originates in the way that we're thinking about the thing that happened. So say your partner got home really late and didn't tell you, right? And you felt hurt or upset or triggered somehow by that. It's not necessarily the fact that he came home late. It's the way that you're relating to the fact that he came home late, right? So without going into much more depth about that, that it's always the way that we're thinking about something that causes the way that we feel about it. And so here's what I really wanted to get to today. A lot of people hear this and get really triggered. They feel bad to admit or to even consider that they might be causing their own pain. They don't want to look at themselves that honestly. And here's why. Because it feels so uncomfortable, right? It feels like they're blaming themselves, which is actually a thought error. It's a mistake of thinking there. We don't have to blame ourselves in order to take self-responsibility. That's a different thing. But it really does. It can feel vulnerable and raw, right? And for some people, shame comes up. When we take responsibility, it's like, instead, when we're mistaking it for self-blame, we're blaming ourselves and we feel shame, right? And that feels terrible. So if you have trouble taking responsibility for something, or if it triggers you when I talk about how like you cause your own pain, it's because you're mistaking blaming yourself for self-responsibility. They're different, right? So if that's happening, what I oftentimes see is people getting a little defensive or triggered, or what really mostly happens is this tendency to revert back to wanting to lay the blame on something outside of yourself, like our partner, right? And we do that in order to avoid the shame and the rawness of owning their part, or like owning that they're creating their pain and their experience. Does that make sense? Right? To avoid feeling like they're blaming themselves, right? But when we don't take ownership, then we have no power to change how we feel or to change the dynamic in the relationship, right? When we don't take responsibility, we don't have power. So some people easily embrace this, that like embrace this idea and of taking responsibility, and they don't really have a lot of problems seeing where they're responsible for causing their own unhappiness, or causing their own hurt, or causing the disconnection that they feel in their partnership. Over and over, I see that these people who don't have a problem taking responsibility for that, these people are the ones who actually create beautiful, loving, deep change in their relationships, right? And the people who kind of get stuck in laying the blame for their happiness on things outside of themselves, like their partner or like other circumstances that happen in their lives, those people tend to spiral more and more into emotional pain, stuckness, sense of stuckness in their relationship, distance in their marriages, etc. Okay, so just notice where you fall right now. There's no shame in either one at all. Just be aware of where you fall right now. And I want to help you if you've had trouble taking responsibility, if it's felt crappy to you to take responsibility. I want to help you a little bit here. Learn how to do it in a way that feels much better, right? So what is the trick to being able to take responsibility, and feel good about it, right? Or at least not feel bad about it. What do the people who are good at taking responsibility have, or what do they do that others don't do? I just really want to make sure you know that they're not magic. They don't have anything that you can't develop. Okay, so it's totally developable. And this is really what it is. And I'm going to kind of ramble on about it a little bit, but it really just is, these people have, and this is what I have too. This is why it's so easy for me to take responsibility for the feelings I have, the results that I have in my life, have a kind attitude, right? So that's the trick. Have a kind attitude to your brain and to yourself, okay? So don't make the mistake of blaming the problem, the hurt you feel or whatever, on the human that you are. No. Don't make it mean that you're bad. No. It's not at all, right? We can lay the blame. If we want to lay the blame anywhere, we can blame our pain on the human brain, okay? And all of its ancient primal conditioning. Like, it was developed, rightly or wrongly, in a way that has it creating pain for us, right? I've talked about the lizard brain. Anyway, the primal brain, it has this tendency to be very negative and reactionary, and create a lot of emotion, negative emotion in us by the way that it thinks about the world out there, okay? So we can blame our pain on that human brain that we have, that at least that ancient part of our brain, okay? And let's take this a step further. We can have so much compassion for that brain, right? Because it's actually just doing what it's meant to do. It's just doing its job of interpreting, of judging, of replaying old negative stories about yourself. And I should say interpreting things in negative ways, right? Telling stories about things. making the fact that he came home late mean he doesn't love you or that he doesn't care enough to get home on time, right? Things like that. So we can have compassion for our brains. That's just what they do, right? And we can even just look at all of it with curiosity and compassion, right? How interesting. That's so interesting that my brain is doing that, or I'm having that thought about it, right? And I think, like, lastly, taking this a little bit further, we can also know that because our brain is doing this thing, right, creating pain and disconnection, it doesn't mean that we're stuck this way or we can't learn how to use it to do the opposite, right? You can learn how to use your brain to stop creating pain and disconnection and use it actually how to create connection and love and all that good stuff, right? But the thing is, you just may not have been taught. You just may not have learned how, right? You may not even been told it was possible until this very moment, right? So for me, seeing how I create my own pain also means that I have the power to uncreate that pain, right? Which is really the best news in the world, right? So all that I said before, knowing all of that, is how I never feel bad for seeing how I'm creating my own pain. Like, I actually love discovering when I'm thinking in a way that's holding me back from what I want. Like, I love taking responsibility for, like, holding myself back, right? I welcome that because it means now I know where my work is. When I can see it, when I can admit to it, then I know where my work is, right? It's kind of like a big X on a treasure map that's like, hey, problem here, dig that up, and underneath you find the gold, right? So sometimes my metaphors are a little wacky. So if that one was a little too woo for you, really in less metaphorical terms, when we take responsibility for the hurt that we feel, it lets us get to work to lessen that hurt or totally eliminate it. And it frees us up to stop feeling so bad and even start feeling really good, right? Start feeling strong, start feeling loving, start feeling powerful, start feeling tender, start feeling compassionate. Okay? And it also allows us to be more effective in how we address an issue with our partner, right? When we start feeling less pain, when we start feeling better, we're going to get so much more effective at like asking, for example, our partner to do things a little bit differently, or sharing about how the way he spoke, was painful to us in an undefended way. Sharing that in an undefended way, which is a much more effective way. It's a way that's much more likely to get through to your partner, and will also be much more likely to, it's a much better chance of him actually wanting to, honor your request or being more sensitive and caring with you. Does this make sense? Because you're not coming from this place of like, you're coming from a very less triggered space, or even a positive, calm, loving space. Always more effective, right? So that is the power that taking responsibility has for us. It's really the ultimate in empowerment in our lives and in our relationships. So I hope that this wasn't too much of a ramble. I hope it really clicked a few things into place for you. I hope it has you getting curious about how it might be possible for you to feel great about taking responsibility for the experiences that you have in your life, the feelings that you have, the connection that you have with your partner, instead of feeling crappy about it. All right, please feel free to post questions or comments. I'm totally happy to help you sort this out a little bit more if we weren't really clear on what I was saying. And I will talk to you all sometime very soon. Be well.